It starts with a shift in the room's energy. Conversations stop when you enter. The people who once promised support watch you with a cold curiosity. Opportunities vanish. Before the shock registers, you're standing entirely alone. Human loyalty generally functions on a curve of convenience. Most people stay as long as your behavior remains predictable and your presence remains agreeable. They accept you because you fit within the existing hierarchy without challenging their position. When you begin to evolve, when you set boundaries, choose discipline over comfort, or build an unapproved path, you stop being predictable. This evolution makes you difficult to influence. People instinctively sense this loss of control over you, and that insecurity triggers a retreat. Isolation provides a brutal clarity. It strips away the social noise and reveals who was present for the person and who was merely there for the utility of the relationship. This is the first time you get to see the landscape without illusions. The immediate instinct is to fight the isolation. People panic. They send desperate messages, launch into long explanations of their intentions, and allow anger to drive their voice. Rushing to defend your reputation provides a goldmine of data. These disorganized explanations are organized into a grid of your insecurities, showing a manipulator exactly what you fear losing. Every defensive sentence hands over the leverage necessary to maintain psychological control. Individuals who understand strategy do not beg to be understood. They recognize that silence creates a vacuum that others cannot help but fill. Surrendering to an emotional outburst might feel cathartic for a few seconds, but it effectively hands the keys to your internal state to the very people waiting for you to fail. When the environment turns hostile, the strategic response is absolute stillness. You become an observer rather than a participant in the conflict. This requires a specific kind of mastery. You might feel the heat of anger or the sting of betrayal, but you treat those feelings like passing weather. You let them exist without allowing them to touch the steering wheel of your behavior. When an attacker expects a loud defense and meets only a calm, silent gaze, they face an immense psychological pressure. Silence is an active force. It creates an uncertainty that weakens an opponent's confidence. To ease this discomfort, people will keep talking. They repeat themselves, they offer justifications you never asked for, and eventually they reveal the real motive behind their hostility. They show their hand simply because they couldn't stand the quiet. By letting the other person reveal their strategy first, you gain the ability to anticipate their movements. You stop reacting to their words and start calculating based on their motives. Controlling the silence allows you to harvest information while your opponent exhausts their own. This shift in the information balance determines who will ultimately dictate the outcome. Isolation is a filter. It removes the distractions and social expectations that usually cloud your thinking. In the quiet, you can finally see the errors in your own judgment without interference. The most significant danger during this period is the temptation of an excuse. An excuse is a comfort that carries a high interest rate. If you decide the economy, bad luck, or treacherous friends are responsible for your failure, you have just decided that your future belongs to luck. You surrender your authority to forces you cannot influence. Choosing ownership means taking control. Every betrayal becomes data. Every setback becomes feedback. You take responsibility for the outcome, regardless of whether circumstances were fair. Taking total ownership of the result makes you difficult to defeat. You stop wasting energy on blame and redirect every bit of attention toward the next move. With the focus shifted to improvement, you enter the period of the unseen hours. This is the work done when no one is watching and no one cares about the progress you're making. Many people rely on the idea of someday to soothe their ego. They talk about their plans because the praise they receive feels almost as good as the achievement itself. But the world is indifferent to potential. It ignores promises and remains unimpressed by planning. It only acknowledges proof. Carrying out your duties when quitting is the easiest option changes you. It creates a person who relies on standards rather than temporary moods. You stop negotiating with your own feelings and start executing based on your objectives. While others spend their energy trying to persuade the crowd, you are building a physical reality. Eventually, the results will reach a scale where persuasion is no longer necessary. Eventually, the results of the work become visible. The same group that once ignored or doubted you is now forced to acknowledge what you've built. You didn't win this shift in perception by winning an argument. You won it because the evidence of your progress became so large that denying it became an act of delusion. The strength of a mind is shown by its ability to generate progress in a vacuum. It is found in the ability to move forward when there is zero external encouragement or support. This path is rare because of the weight it carries. It requires the burden of daily discipline, the sacrifice of immediate comfort, and the willingness to stand alone for as long as necessary. Stop searching for a leader to follow or a savior to arrive. Take full responsibility for the ground you stand on. Perform the duties of the person you needed when you were at your lowest, and become the reason the situation changes.